What's up, YouTube? What's White Matt again here with another live stream. And today, in this video, what I want to discuss is the European Super League. Now, what's up, YouTube? What's White? I was going to discuss this a couple of days ago when it all was kicking off. I thought, let me just relax, chill, and make sure that I always collect my thoughts because there's been a lot of uproar over the last few days, reasonably so, in regards to the European Super League and how that will have a massive knock-on effect in regards to the leagues, the pyramid scheme in English football and the other leagues across the continent. But after sitting back, I thought to myself, do you know what? This idea is a very good idea for football. Now, I have to preface, the execution is poor. I'm going to get into the reason why I'm going to say the execution is poor, and there are some things which I definitely do disagree with. But on a whole, conceptually, I actually love the idea. And let me explain as to the reason why. Now, first off, the things that I hate. I clearly hate the fact of, for some odd reason, there's a ring-fence group of 15 teams that are allowed in the European Super League, regardless of whether they're good or bad in the past, or say in the recent history. People like AC Milan, a lot of the Italian teams. It's just, it makes absolutely no sense. What's up, KB? How's it going? Afternoon, man. I decided to do a live stream a bit early on today and supposed to wait in on later on this evening. So hope you're doing well. Hope you enjoy the stream. I may even open up the stream later on, depending on whether you want to contribute or not. Let me know. I may open up the stream. But yeah, but back to this. I really, really do hate the fact of it was a close shot for a group of 15, because apparently, according to the rules and regulations, 15 teams would allow entry access regardless how well or poorly they do in their domestic leagues, whereas there's like a rotating 5 teams who will get, I want to say, special invitation. And I'm assuming it's based on how well they've done over the past few seasons, whether they meet the criteria, all this kind of other stuff. That I hate. And that's why I completely agree with the outrage that took place with the fans saying, oh, it's, you know, it's killing off competition. It's not how we like things to be done. I 100% agree. So you have absolutely no arguments with me with that one right there. However, this is the bigger picture, which I've been saying for a long time. And I've been discussing it with a few people who also agree with me. We're in the minority now, but they also agree with me. When people talk about competition, particularly in a lot of the leagues we see nowadays, I have to ask the question, are you sure you are happy with what we're seeing right now in terms of competition? Because the model that they're trying to come up with is an NFL-style model, which, if anyone follows the NFL, which I do, they would understand that every year in the Super Bowl, we could have a different winner. So in the Super Bowl, based on their model of having a collective of just, it's 30 teams in the NFL, they have a playoff system. And based on that playoff system, do you know how many different teams over the last, let's say, 10 years? Matter of fact, yeah, let's say 10 years. Over the last 10 years, do you know how many teams have actually won the Super Bowl? Not just got there, but won the Super Bowl, in comparison to how many teams over the last 10 years has won the Premier League. Now, I've done a quick research. Now, forget 10 years for the Premier League. Since the Premier League started in 1993, only 7 teams have won the Premier League. 7. That's Arsenal, Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City, Blackburn, and Leicester City. They're the only teams who have won the Premier League since its inception, all way back when in 1993. Now, in only 10 years of the NFL, in the last 10 years, there have been, I think it's even, say 12 years, 15, there's been at least a dozen Super Bowl winners. That's the difference. This is the model which they're trying to bring across into football. Now, however, I will agree the execution is poor. They definitely need to understand some of the merits of how it's done. They definitely need some rejigging. But there's a clear reason why they're doing this. Because if you guys are moaning about competition, and if you guys are saying, oh, well, we're not like the American system here where they do this and they do that and all this kind of other stuff. Okay, cool. I agree. You could never get away with the things that they do over there. For example, they will move their franchises, what they call, or as we call clubs. They will move their franchises all the way across the country, depending on whether it has the customers, the support, the finances, the stadium, the market in whatever state or city that they're in. They'll move it. Classic example is the Oakland Raiders. Now it's called the Las Vegas Raiders. That could never happen over here. You would never have Manchester United or Liverpool, a storied historical club, moving from like Liverpool to Manchester, from Manchester to some other sort of city, neighboring city, like Newcastle, something. It could never happen. There will be 100% right on our hands. So in that respect, I totally get the differences between the American system and regards to how we do. We have loyalty, we have sense of pride. It's not as if you, for the most part, it's not as if we just pick a team. You're like born with a team. So we're very passionate to a fault. But however, this is what the bigger picture needs to be understood. For me, I love competition. I love seeing different teams winning. That's why the Leicester City story that was happening in 2000, I think it was 13 to 14, it was an absolute wonderful situation. But don't that tell you everything about that story? That was such an anomaly because of the financial might that the top 6 and really now the top probably 3 or 4 teams in the Premier League have. That a team like Leicester, who come into the Premier League division, it was unheard of. Unheard of. And if you ask people again, will that ever happen again? People say no. So even though we try and say, oh, a Leicester City who came up from the Championship, they just about survived in the Championship in their first season, then the next season they won the title. That's a fantastic example of what it means for the football pyramid. I'm like, that is such an exception. The odds at the time were 5,000 to 1 for that to even happen. Such was the long odds. And that's the thing which I really want to key in on, because we all talk about we want competition. But truth be told, there is no competition. Look at the German league. Look at Bayern Munich. They're going to win. I know they're going through, I would say a tough period. They're not streaking away in the Bundesliga, but they are clearly going to win this year's Bundesliga, which will mean I think it's 8 times in a row. 8 times in a row in a German league, in which RB Leipzig did well in Champions League last season. Borussia Dortmund aren't some nobodies, but they're doing poor this season. So in a league, we have these kind of teams in there. How have Bayern Munich been able to win 8 years in a row? Look at the French division. We all know about PSG and their dominance. I know this season, again, is a bit more competitive. I would agree. But let's be honest, that is an exception to the rule. Let's go to Spain. La Liga again. Who are the teams who are going to win this year's La Liga? We already know it off the back of our hand without even asking any question. It would either be Real Madrid, Barcelona, and if you are lucky now, I'm going to put Atletico Madrid. Now, again, they're top of the table, Atletico Madrid, but I guarantee it, they've been fumbling and stumbling. No one would have any sort of, no one would be surprised if Real Madrid or Barcelona, and I think it'd be Real Madrid if they win the Premier League, the La Liga, sorry. That is the dominance that's happened over Europe. So when we talk about competition, when we talk about we want to see different winners, when we want to see about we want to actually earn the right to do these things, we want to earn the right to get into, we want to earn the right to play these big teams. I got to ask the question, is anyone actually surprised at the winners of their respective leagues all across Europe when the tables finish in, say, May, June time? I don't think anyone's surprised. In England, we pretty much know, even though we say we've got a big 6, let's be honest, of the big 6, Arsenal, Tottenham aren't going to do anything. Liverpool have finally won 1 out of 30 years. So really, it's Manchester United. I know they're going through a tough time, but Man City, Chelsea, Man United. But really, Man City and Chelsea are the only 2 teams of recent history who are really pulling up any trees. And again, Liverpool remains to be seen because they've only won 1 of the last 30 years. Obviously dating back to the old first division style. But let's be honest, Liverpool have to win another title for me to consider themselves as, yes, they can routinely challenge for the title like Man City and Chelsea. Because the difference between Man City and Chelsea is it doesn't matter what managers have managed those teams. They've had multiple winners of the title with different managers. Liverpool have not shown that yet. They're trying to get back to that, but they're trying to get there. That's the thing which I'm talking about when you talk about competition. Whereas with this model, what that will allow is if everyone's on equal footing, if everyone gets the same amount of revenue, if everyone allows themselves not to be, if you like, relegated or promoted, what that means is you'll have teams like Ajax, you have teams like Borussia Dortmund. They legitimately can have enough finances to be able to, guess what, usurp the rest of the team. Because the same thing goes on in Europe, let's be honest. If you go back to Champions League winners, ever since the reformat of the Champions League, and this is the next point I want to make, because beforehand, the Champions League was only for the winners of the divisions. It was only I think it was the Cup Winners' Cup, exactly what it's called, but it was European winners that was only allowed entrance into the European leagues, which means the top of the top. And it was a knockouts round. So these knockout rounds, which means that, guess what? You had so much more upsets because, again, you lose one game, that's it, you're out. There's none of this two-legged, there's none of this, group stages. There was none of this, you could lose 3 games. and you can still get through depending what kind of group you fall in. None of that kind of stuff. It was pure knockout round. So it was harder, to the point, and it was only 4 champions. Whereas now, guess what they've done with the Champions League? Because guess what they wanted? Just like everyone keeps complaining about the greed, the money, you only care about revenue, you only care about TV rights. What do you think the Champions League reformat was done all way back when and still doing to this day? They wanted more money, so guess what they did? They allowed non-champions into the Champions League. So this is where you have the top 4 teams, depending on how good your league is, they can get in. They can qualify if it's a lesser league via playoffs round, especially the Scottish League, all them kind of other stuff. So guess what? All of it was the exact same basis. How can we extract more finances to make, I say more competition, but allow the illusion of competition? Because guess what? If you look at the history of the Champions League prior to the reformat of the group stages, you had a lot more different Champions League winners. Now, you look at the recent history, how many different Champions League winners do you actually see? Real Madrid, Barcelona, I think Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester. You can about 6-7 teams have won the Champions League, I'm pretty sure, in the last 10 years, 10, 15 plus years. It's that mad. Even in might of the Premier League and the English teams, they've still not been able to win in the Champions League as much as I thought and as much as people thought they would have. That's what I'm talking about when we talk about competition, how it's just been this whole idea of competition from fans and all this kind of rhetoric has always been an illusion, and it has been a lie, which is why the conceptual basis of this Super League, which allows teams to have, for the most part, equal footing from revenue, it allows them to equally compete on the same level as opposed to other BS that we've seen so far, which would allow an NFL model to be brought in, which would allow different winners. Now, again, a lot of people disagreed. A lot of people saying, oh, you don't know what you talk about, you know what you talk about. But what makes me laugh is this. We have a situation now where if you're not in the top 6, you're pretty much good as just trying to stay up in the Premier League. No one's really doing anything. If you're not outside the elite 6 because of the finances involved in football, your best thing you can hope for is maybe a good cup run or staying in the Premier League. That's what everyone's doing. Everyone has every now and again a good season. Take, for example, Sheffield United. Last year they did really well. I think they finished 7th, but they was up to 5th. And I think they could have even, very, very stretching it, come up to 4th. Such was their good form that it was on. But look at them now. They've been relegated. Leeds United, this season, have done well. What's going to happen to them next season? Southampton, Brighton, Fulham, all these teams here, every team outside of the top 6, let's just be honest, they're just fighting for survival. Now, is that what you really want as a football as a football team? This illusion of a pyramid, this illusion of maybe not you could actually make it into the elites. Maybe you can get into Europe. Maybe you can solidify yourself, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be 1 season, 2 season wonders. Now, Leicester, I will agree, seem to be an exception to the rule. But look what they had to go through to do that. Because after their title win in 2013 to 14, they had so much upheaval in their team with Claudio Ranieri leaving, Craig Shakespeare, Claude Puel. They had so much upheaval because guess what? Like every other team fighting and struggling to make sure they can stay in the Premier League and solidify themselves, they wanted to spend whatever kind of money they can do, get how many managers need to do to make sure that they can stay in a position which they thought they could do. Which is why this whole illusion of competition is just madness. Because as well as Leicester are doing this season, and I hope they make the Champions League, I actually fear for them in the Champions League. Because I'm like, will they fare well? Will they come out of the top 4 spots? Because other teams are going to come back into it. And then business as usual is going to be resumed. This is the problem. It's going to be BAU. It's going to be a 1 season, 2 seasons at the most. And then it's going to be back to normal. And everyone's going to be none the wiser. And everyone's going to say, oh, yeah, but you remember when Leicester won in 2013, 14? You remember when Atletico Madrid won La Liga way back when? You remember when this way back when? And like, well, yeah, but hold on a second. That is the exception. That's not the norm. And that's the killer. With this model, they want the norm to be, we don't know who's going to win it from year to year. We want it to be the case of, you know what? If every team had, for the most part, had an equal footing in revenue, equal footing and not have to worry about relegation or promotion, what would happen? This is the same argument with the Glasgow Rangers and Celtic discussion in Scotland. Before I continue, I've noticed a few people in this chat, so I'm just going to say big up to you guys. So, Vincent, big up. It's 8 a.m. in your time in the world in Florida. Thanks for tuning in. I know it was a bit early for you, but I thought, I'd do a little bit of an earlier stream today. I was saying to KB, I'm going to open up the chat because it looks as if you guys are all good to come up. So I'm going to open chat in a little bit after I've gone through my little rant, if you like. So if you want to come up, by all means, you're free to do so. Yeah, even if you don't know any much about football, it'd be interesting to hear your, well, I suppose hear your views, even if you really care. But if you want to just chill out and relax, that's cool. I'll leave the link to the stream so you can come up if you wish to. But yeah, but I really wanted to sort of get this out of my off my chest because again, what I one of the things I hate about the football culture, because funny enough, I like football, but I'm not in love with the sport. So I can see things from different perspectives that football fans really can't. And football fans, I hate the fan culture because it's so tribalistic, it's so aggressive, it's that typical lad culture that football really brings, as opposed to other sports that I follow, like cricket, rugby, Formula One. It For me, if I was to compare the sports to social media outlets, here's what I would do. I would say football is like Twitter, where Twitter is very toxic. Football fans are very toxic. I would compare rugby to YouTube because YouTube can be polarizing both, particularly when you got rugby league, rugby union conversations. So that can be a bit of back and forth. YouTube, you kind of go into your sort of echo chambers. And then I'll say cricket is like Instagram, where it's a little bit more nicer, friendly. You don't get the BS that you get elsewhere. That's how I would compare the fan culture in regards to social media outlets. And football is like, it's so toxic that you can't even get a reasonable discussion with a lot of football fans because they're so tribalistic. It's like a religion to a lot of people, where because they can't, like religious peoples, they can't hear other sides of the views. It's almost as if you're preaching against their God. That is unbelievable. So a lot of times I'll say to people, I don't support teams. I like the sport, which is why I can have, for me, a little bit of a more balanced viewpoint, because I also enjoy other sports. And I also see how other sports manage to thrive. Because one of the things that this model allows us to do when I compare to American models, which again, football fans will agree with me on this one, the wages. Young talent gets wages that are astronomical. Whereas in American models, where it be the NFL, baseball, or the NBA, here's what happens. They have salary caps. So guess what? It's only the best players, particularly if you look at the NBA. I'll take the NBA, for example. They have something called a designated, not designated player. They have the max salary cap, where only certain players who have achieved certain greatness in their sport can achieve it. So if you're a rookie or a young player, you can't be on this max salary contracts. Whereas in football over here, it doesn't matter what you've done in the sport. As long as you have a little bit of potential, one season wonder, you can get a contract worth, what, 200K a week? I'm like, that's madness. And we talk about how money's ruining the game. We talk about how players want too much money too young. Well, this is part of the model because it gives the clubs power and more leverage over the players. Whereas now, all fans will agree with this, I'm sure, and clubs will agree with this. Footballers have more leverage over the teams, of the clubs. Whereas in a closed type model, in a model like this, here's what happens. These players can only get finances based on the salary cap that's available to them on the team, based on how good they are as a player, based on their value, their resale value. All of these things allow the teams to not go bankrupt, and it gives them a better footing. So guess what? They can spend money on a balanced squad. They can make sure that they're not going out of business. Because this is what happens with the football teams right now. Outside of the Premier League, most teams are about going bankrupt. They're fighting desperately to get into the Premier League because they're spending so much money, and a lot of it's on player wages. Majority of the money that finances in football goes on players' wages, and of course, as a result, agents. And everyone don't like agents, and everyone don't like the football wages that these players are on, especially the younger ones. So guess what happens? This model, it allows that to happen. Whereas in a different type of model, guess what happens? It brings a different vibe. It brings in my view, how I see it and how I envisage that because a lot of the American owners who are involved in this stuff, how they would see it, it would allow a fairer model and a fairer distribution. I say fairer distribution, but it allows a better system to allow a distribution model, which is kind of more socialist. Funny enough, it's a hell of a lot more socialist than people give it credit for. And that actually is what I thought a lot of people would want, because socialism is technically, people see it as code for fairness. Now, I know a lot of people don't, it's a lot more nuances with socialism, but the idea of socialism is that people have more of the control as opposed to these, individual entities. So I always find it interesting listening to the rhetoric, the favor, and just the actual, it's crazy rhetoric coming from pundits, fans, and it's so hypocritical. They're also hypocritical, and a lot of people have said the same thing. How, listen, it's all hypocritical how UEFA, FIFA are talking about the greed when they've been doing the exact same thing. They want to expand their competitions. They only care about their competitions. They want to make sure that all the TV broadcasters can get it chiming on it, so it screws over the fans, but allows them to have a massive footing. So all this kind of stuff just makes me think you guys are all just a bunch of hypocrites. But going past that, the bigger picture is, listen, what do we want our leagues to look like in the next 10 to 15 years? Do we want more of the same where finances of football players are going to go up and clubs are going to go bust in pursuit of just to stay in the Premier League? Is that what we want right now? And Vincent, in answer to your question, how much a football player is played, it all depends on how good the football player is. However, I'll say this. Lionel Messi is deemed the best player in football. Now, his contract that he signed was for just short of 500 million euros for 4 years. So he was going to get paid 500 million euros over a 4-year period. That's how much football players can get paid. Now, granted, he's the best player, but you're talking about players of excess of over £250,000 per week. That's kind of what these players are getting paid, and it's only getting more and more and more, because what's happening now is players are getting rid of agents because they want to negotiate their own deals. Now, because agents get paid a cut of finances, guess what's going to happen? They're going to get paid. Players are going to get paid more and more and more because players are exercising more of their rights. They want more of their own sponsorship deals. They want more of their own image rights. They want a lot more cut of their revenue because football is a £1 billion industry. It's the most watched sport on planet Earth, bar none. Bar none. And it's still growing. So you couple with that fact, you have a lot of leverage that football players have because people go to watch the football players. They go to watch the football players. Let's be honest. Nowadays, beforehand it used to be really much a team-focused sport, but a lot of younger people are more interested in my favorite player playing that certain team. So people who like Cristiano Ronaldo, they used to be Real Madrid fans. Now they'll be Juventus fans. You see what I mean? So now a lot of these younger players, younger followers of the sport are more interested in the players as opposed to teams like it was back in the day. People support their team regardless of who comes in and comes out. And it's still that goes on today. There still is that. But it's a lot more different. And players are having more leverage because they're exercising certain deals. Whereas in a bit of a different type of model, it gives the power back to the clubs, which will hopefully make sure that the fans get a little bit more say. I know people disagree with me here, but if you look at a lot of American style models, the stadium's a lot better, architecture is a lot better. They can at least try and compete. There's a lot more things that goes on which people just don't even consider, which happens over here. Because let's be honest, a lot of stadiums over here are just terrible. A lot of the facilities are horrible, which doesn't allow for grassroots to come through. There's a lot of things in the system which I do not like, which the American model, as much as it's much maligned, it allows for a lot more fair weighting, and it allows for a lot more structure. It allows for a lot more teams not to come in willy-nilly without a good base. So it allows for a lot of things which can be invested in, which people don't seem to really take notice of, which a lot of Americans do. A lot of Americans care about things like presentation, style, stadiums, transport links. They care about the whole infrastructure of things that take place. They care that you come in and you have a good financial footing, not some cowboy coming in thinking he can take over a team and not financially support that. They have a lot more financial restrictions than we ever do. This is why this whole thing about FIFA financial fair play that came in, Americans have always had that for the longest because they've always known that they want to make sure that they can be solvent as a business because it is a business. Now, over here, we see it as a football club, but that's the problem. A lot of football fans, what they want is some sheikh with billions and billions of pounds to come into their team, take it over, spend a whole heap of kind of money on it, and then guess what? Not get a return back on it. I'm like, hold on a second. How is that going to work? A lot of business people would like a return on their investments, but what football fans don't understand is that costs a lot of money to do that kind of stuff. Not everyone has that kind of money to do that kind of stuff. And people have gone broke in their pursuit because they think it's just I can spend all this kind of money, get all this kind of players. I'm like, that's not how it works. Now, more often than not, I'll be honest with you, you spend more money, you do get a better outcome. But I've seen so many examples where that's not the case. And the money that they talk about is on another level. Whereas in this type of model, it allows for a fairer idea, or at least it gives that illusion, I suppose, of everyone gets an equal share of the pot, which means everyone can equally attract the best players. Because if everyone had the exact same salary restrictions and could pay the players the exact same amount of money, let's see exactly how good these teams will be. Because let's be honest, all teams are doing right now is just saying, oh, I can pay you an extra £100,000 per week, an extra £50,000 per week. But what if every team could pay that player the exact same wages? Now what's going to happen? It'll be a completely different footing. So no longer we have Dortmund, where they have to rely on selling their best players. Ajax, they completely ripped up their team that went to the Champions League semi-finals. So much so that this season, they're not even in Champions League. They're in the Europa League because they got knocked out of the Champions League group stage. And think about that. That was a team that was on the up and up. Monaco, another same example. They had a great team. 1 year where they had Mbappe, Bernardo Silva, Thomas Lemar, Bacalhau in the middle, centre midfield. Who else did they have in that team? Mendy. All these players were in that team. One good season, they're all ripped apart. All of them are gone. Mbappe's gone. Thomas Lemar is gone. Bernardo Silva gone. All these good players have gone. Why? Because of the finances. And we talk about we want it to be a level playing field. We want it to be equal. We want to see good, unique stories like Leicester. You're not going to get that in this current model because guess what? The teams would have the bigger wage salaries, the bigger wage budgets. They're going to attract the best players. That's exactly what happens. Where it is the American model, the NFL model, that's very, very rarely the case. So many different players go to so many different teams because they all can relatively pay the same. It's just whether they want to or not. That's the difference. And that's why I'm just like, do you really want competition or do you want it to be the same old, same old? Because that's what I'm seeing right now. I'm not seeing competition. I'm seeing the same old, same old. And that's why I say the European Super League is a good idea. The execution is off. They need to sort out the whole relegation, promotion stuff. But there needs to be some sort of restructure in the teams, in the leagues. Because right now, the leagues are becoming 1 to 2 horse races. And it's becoming boring, repetitive, and people are tuning out. Why would I watch the German league when I know by the end of the season, Bayern Munich is going to win it? Why would I watch League One when I know at the end of the season, PSG is going to win it? Why would I watch the league when I know at the end of the season, either Real Madrid or Barcelona is going to win it? Why would I watch that? Why would I watch the Champions League when I know there's only realistically 5 teams that's going to win it? Because the more amount of games, the more group stages, the better team with the bigger squads and the better players will inevitably win. That's why this restructure needs to take place. It's the bigger picture now about competition. If you guys care about competition like you said you do, then we need to talk about this restructure because right now it's only working for the elite few and the rest of them are just about head above water. That's how bad it is. If you look at the finances of some of these teams, it's shocking. Teams are going bust. Teams are getting their points deducted. Teams need bailout. It is madness. But this is the model that has been allowed to just permeate under the illusion of because you have a football pyramid. Yeah, anyone can come in the Premier League and anyone can. And no. There is now a cartel in the Premier League. There's a cartel in all the leagues which states because of how the finances have been unfairly distributed in my mind, even to this day, that says only realistically a certain amount of teams can get in. And with the FIFA financial fair play, which has allowed, let's be honest, teams which has owners which they want to spend more money, they can't do it because they're under restriction. So if I buy a football club, if I'm a billionaire, for example, and I buy a football club and I want to spend so much money to get those better players, I'm going to be in violation of FIFA financial fair play because guess what? The history of my team dictates I shouldn't be able to spend that kind of money. Whereas teams which have just been in that cartel for all this amount of years, they're fine because they got bigger revenue streams, they're a bigger name, they're a bigger brand. Whereas a smaller brand who wants to get to that bigger brand, they have to go through so much more hoops in order to do that. It's madness. So this is why I'm saying we need a massive rethink. So that's my thoughts. I'm going to open up the chat. What's up, Falcon? How's it going? Glad that you're in the chat. I don't know if you caught any of the stream at all, but I'm just talking about this European Super League and how even though a lot of people have been complaining about this, I actually see a lot of merits within this. It needs tweaking like crazy. Do not get me wrong, but there's a lot of merits in it. So I'm just going to drop the link in the chat. Feel free to come up. I didn't want this to be necessarily, a long ass chat. Sorry, long stream. So by all means, weigh in on it if you wish to. Let me know your thoughts on it. But yeah, all it needs is just a better execution. The problem is the whole execution of it. And this is the problem where Americans, they really didn't understand the English system. But the thing is, I'm going to say this. It wasn't even just Americans because it was Florentino Perez, the Real Madrid, I think he's a technical director. He understands it perfectly well. So he understood exactly what the system's like. But this is what I mean, where they wanted it done because they understood. And I will say this: Real Madrid, Barcelona, they're in dire straits. They're in dire straits. So I know why they needed it done. But however, there needs to be a rethink of it at all. It's not just American owners. It's a lot of owners are saying, look, football is not sustainable, particularly when they talk about this pandemic, particularly when they talk about just how money is not the same as it used to be. It's not sustainable. So we need a massive change. Now, as to how that looks like, that's coming the big question. But there needs to be a change in regards to how this stuff is done. As to what it is, I don't know. I'm hearing talks about a British Super League now. See, this is the funniest thing now, because now we're talking about revamping the Premier League after this has gone ahead. I'm like, my day, it took this for you guys to realize how unfair the Premier League is, how unfair these leagues are, because we all know who the winners are going to be. We just don't know exactly maybe what order they may finish in. We all know Man City are going to either finish first or second. We all know that Chelsea are going to be there or thereabouts once they get their act together because they spend a lot of money anyway. We know Man United will finally be there or thereabouts. It's just about what order. That's why they call it the top six. It's all about who's going to finish in what order. Now, I'm going to include Tottenham and Arsenal because they're nowhere. Tottenham may have good seasons, but on their best season, they can do anything. But this is the kind of competition that we're talking about. 3 or 4 teams. Whereas if you look at the American models, they have about 11 teams in 15 years winning these Super Bowls. They have different Super Bowl winners, different Super Bowl participants. They really make it a situation where it is completely varied and you don't know what's going to happen on any given Sunday. That's what they say. That's one of their mantras, on any given Sunday. Whereas over here, I'll be honest with you, on any given week, I'm like, for the most part, I know what's going to happen. I don't care how people say, oh, the Premier League is the most competitive league in the world. No, it's not. No, it's not. Cut that lie. Cut that lie out. It's PR'd and promoted that way, but let's be honest, it's really not. Another thing as well, which I want to talk about, is just how poor the product is so far. I don't know if you guys have been watching games as of late, but the football games has been absolutely disgusting. Disgusting to watch. I've been bored out my mind. There are certain teams I'm saying to myself, oh my days, I don't know how you can be a football supporter of this particular team watching the shit that I've saw in the last 90 to 90 minutes. It is so bad. And these are even the historically better teams. I was watching the Arsenal versus Everton game. I said to myself, oh my days, Arsenal were apparently going to be one of these super teams. I said to myself, are you serious? Are you serious? Everton, a team who's trying to break into that top 4. It was like watching paint dry. It was that bad. And the game finished 1-0 to Everton. And I looked at that game, and if you look at how the goal was scored, I was like, oh my days. It was such a comical mistake that if this was in a women's game, men will be completely clowning women, clowning this. I'm like, but this is meant to be the men's game. This is meant to be the teams who are meant to be of the top half of the Premier League, the top caliber. That if it was to show a fan who don't know anything about the sport, yeah, watch these games. These should tell you the standard that it exists in the top half of the Premier League. It is mad. And this is why I'm just like, are we really, really sure we want the status quo to remain as it is? Because the standard of the Premier League, barring a couple of teams, I see it as an all-time low. I really do. I don't get the excitement of watching football anymore. I really don't. So other sports have sort of got my fancy because I tune in it down again. I watch the highlights. I see what's up. I understand what's going on. I see it all the time. But other than some other games that I watch, I'm like, I really can't be bothered watching these games. It's so bad, so bad. And this is what happens. It's just the competition that we famously say. It's like it no longer exists. Ever since the Champions League format has been restructured, ever since the Premier League has come into effect in 1993, we don't have competition. It's an illusion. We really don't have any competition. All the things that I can see right now is just the same old happening. So here's what I imagine. I imagine that this stuff will blow over the next sort of few weeks. It's clearly getting the airways right now, but it will go back to how it's always been, and then we're gonna sit back here and say, oh well, the same teams are gonna win all the time, and then probably another 10 years or so, we'll have another conversation about this crap happening again. And then again, back in that cycle. So that's how I see it happening. Apparently, they really want to progress with the Super League. I don't see how they will because the fans aren't going to have it. The boards have pussied out of it quite early, to be fair. I'm actually surprised that they completely just, shirked it. The first sign of resistance, they wimped out like a bitch. I was like, how in the hell are you guys meant to be billionaires pushing out of something like this? I just didn't get that at all. But what can I say? PR, man. I'm telling you, in this kind of cancel culture, woke culture that we're living in right now, that's become a massive, massive thing. So I don't know, but the links out there in the chat, guys. So if you want to come on and let me know your thoughts, if you have any thoughts on this sort of issue, let me know. Don't forget to like the stream, share the stream, subscribe if you're new. But I think all you guys subscribe at the moment. But yeah, don't forget to like the stream. But yeah, let me know if you want to come in and weigh in your 2 cents. Otherwise, I'll probably wrap up the stream in a little while. I just wanted to get my little thoughts out there because I'm hearing a lot of football fans foaming at the mouth. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I always think to myself, people don't know history. One thing that I've realized about people nowadays is in all walks of life, people don't know their history because this isn't the first time that this has happened and has worked. Again, the Premier League is a classic example of that. Before the Premier League, there was a first division, which again was a lot more competitive. Then, because teams wanted to have their own closed cartel, the Premier League was created. I think it was like 5 to 6 teams who wanted to break away from the first division, called it the Premier League. But the difference is they didn't have a closed shop. They just made it another football pyramid, a high echelon of the football pyramid. And guess what happened? Because Sky TV came in to the Premier League and the money and the revenue just it just increased extraordinary, exorbitant fees. And what happened? Manchester United were able to dominate and solidify themselves as the powerhouse because as the Premier League started and the Sky TV deal rights came on at the right time, guess what they was able to do? Wield their power, wield the extra finances that they was created in order to make sure that they can solidify themselves as the greatest ever Premier League team in the modern era and arguably the most biggest football brand in the world. All because of the TV deal and all because they wanted to break away because they thought that they themselves were going to be the bigger team in the land. And guess what? That's what they did. So when I hear these sort of things about, oh, you guys don't understand this, you don't understand that, I'm like, listen, it's just another guise of the same thing that we've been seeing all the time. This is nothing new. So I don't know. Do I think this will go through this particular situation? I don't. But if I'm wrong, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But I can see this being another circular conversation that goes on every so often. Because again, classic example is the whole Celtic Rangers conversation. Oh, we want Celtic and Rangers in the Premier League. Oh, they should be in the Premier League. Oh, they should be in the Premier League. And to be fair, I'll say this. I don't see why they're not. Because if we can allow Cardiff and Swansea, who are Welsh, in the Premier League, in the English football pyramid, then why can't we allow Celtic and Rangers also in the football pyramid? That doesn't make any sense to me. But I know it would have a damaging effect to the Scottish Premier League if they do that. So I know for a fact that's exactly what will happen. So it is what it is. And but one thing I always will say is that this needs to be implemented in other sports. So not just football, but if cricket and rugby can implement these sort of things, because they have smaller teams. I think for cricket, they have 2 divisions, Division 1, Division 2. For rugby, they have about 2 divisions. I think it's 3 divisions. Because they've got smaller teams, this will allow cricket and rugby to grow. Because cricket and rugby should be a bigger part of the market share. So if they do this in cricket and rugby, if anyone had the foresight to do this when it comes to those kind of sports, I'm telling you right now, it'll be a lot bigger sport and make it on some sort of free-to-air sort of TV. And then, honestly, it'll be crazy. It'll be crazy. But yeah, let me know if you guys want to come up on the chat. Otherwise, I'll end the stream. I'm not going to be here for too long on a Saturday. I don't want to keep you away from whatever you're doing. So let me know. Do you guys want to come up? I've dropped the link. I can't see anyone in the back chat unless I'm not looking at this right. But yeah, but if not, though, what I'll do is I'll end the stream in a bit. But I just wanted to put my 2 thoughts on the issue at all as to why I do. It's a good idea in principle. It's just the execution of it is extremely, extremely poor. And it is something that needs to be done because I'm sick and tired of watching football games or watching start of the season, all this hope, all these football fans have all this hope. And I'm like, what's the point? It's all going to be the same thing. So once you already know an outcome of a situation, is there really any point? Is there really any joy, any hope out of it? Whereas when I look at, again, across the pond, when I look at their models, you really do not know for the most part who's going to get there. I know people say the Patriots before Tom Brady left and all this kind of other stuff, but let's be real. The dominance that they've had is nowhere near in comparison to dominance that Bayern Munich, PSG, Real Madrid, Barcelona have had. They've exclusively dominated their leagues. The Patriots, them getting to the Super Bowl 2 out of the last 5 years or winning the Super Bowl 2 of the last 5 years, to them, that signals dominance. Whereas they have different teams: Seahawks, Denver Broncos, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Giants, Steelers. Who else am I missing? All these teams, Kansas City Chiefs, all those teams who like have won it in the last like 10 to 15 years. Whereas look at 10, 15 years of all our leagues, the exact same winners. They have like 15, 20 winners. It gets to a stage now where you have to ask the question, who hasn't won the Super Bowl? It's not about who has won the Super Bowl, it's who hasn't won the Super Bowl. Of the 30 teams, it's who hasn't won the Super Bowl in their history. Whereas when you look at our teams, the question is, who has won the Premier League? Who has won the First Division? That's how bad it gets. Who has won the Bundesliga? That's how bad it gets. Now, I know, of course, because we have more teams because the pyramids, it makes it worse. But still, that's the whole point. We want competition. That's what competition looks like. Competition is where we don't have any clue as to who's going to win any Sunday and who's going to actually get to the Super Bowl. That's what it comes down to. Not this BS. This is just a fake competition. So that's why I say it's a good idea. Poor execution. This needs a little bit more tweaks to it. But I like the idea as a whole. I like where it's going, as long as it goes in the direction that I hope it's going to go, and not a direction which it's going to require it's going to mean the same old, which I don't think it will do, but that's what my hope is. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say for today. Thanks for watching. I'm going to close down the stream since no one's coming up in the back chat, but I appreciate you tuning in. And then I've got a stream on tomorrow. Hope you tune in for that one as well. Until next time, I'm out.